welcome. So this is I Do What I Want. I am your host, Hollis McCullum, or just Hollis. We're just going to start saying the first name. I need to stop with the whole, I'm tired of saying my entire name every time. Hi, I'm Hollis. Anyway, this podcast is all about my personal writing journey, writing tips, obviously my books, and just things related to it. And sometimes I have friends who come on and we talk about cool stuff related to books usually, but we get off topic, and that's fun too. And anyway, this particular episode is actually about writer's block and how to deal with it, because it sucks. So, nobody likes it. It does. Before I jump into that, I do want to remember to remind you all that I have a writing workshop coming up on February 18th. It is via Zoom. So that means it doesn't matter where you are in the world, as long as you remember what time zone you need to tune in, you can come in. And I also, because when you sign up, you send me an email. If you are in like a 12-hour time difference from me, I am on the East Coast of the United States, so I'm, East Coast time, US, then, if you're like in Australia and you're like 10 hours or 12 hours different from me, then that's fine. I am going to be recording it. And if you purchase my writer's workshop as a recording, just let me know in the email that because of, sleep, you need to, or work schedulers or whatever, you need to get the recording. You are 100% able to do that, and I would just love to hopefully help. So that should be a really fun workshop. It's if you go to my website, hollisjomccullumauthor.com, the link is below in my in the description of everything. Then you can sign up for it. The link to register is just right there, and it's only $25, and it's going to be 2 hours, or I'm going to take you through the entire process. And if you attend live, I will still send you the recording so that you have just reference. If you're like, oh, I don't remember that one point or whatever it was, then yeah, I'm going to send. If you pay for the workshop, then you get the recording. That's just a freebie. So sign up. The other things, of course, I want to mention are, To Save a World and Spare the Swallow, still on Amazon. It's still available. Spare the Swallow has a 5-star rating officially. Yay! I mean, there's only one review, but I'm really excited about it. And for those of you who have read it and have not reviewed it, I would be eternally grateful if you would, because those of us who are authors, especially independent authors like yours truly, we live for your reviews. And I know it's before I was an author, I would often forget to write a review. I honestly would. Like many readers, even if I absolutely loved the book, I just wouldn't think about reviewing it. But I got to tell you, as an author, I review everything now when I read it, especially if I enjoy it. I find it to be extremely important, just because the reviews, it's a very quick, easy, and free way to give us a huge boost. And those ratings really are important on Amazon and Goodreads and everything else. So don't forget to review not just my books, but any books you read. Doesn't matter. It could be a book on finance. I don't care. Fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. Authors, regardless of genre or anything, we all need your reviews. So please, be a friend and do us a solid. But yes, they're coming. And The Queen Witch, the sequel to Save a World, is going to be published this spring. I'm still aiming for April. It looks like I'm going to be able to do that, and I'm working on doing my cover reveal, because I got that all designed. As many of you know, with the exception of Spare the Swallow, I design my own book covers. Dio Jensen, who is a wonderful designer, actually did Spare the Swallow, and I am so thrilled with how that came out. I did not do that myself because I honestly did not feel I was the correct artist for that book cover, and Dio 100% was. So if you know, even if you're a designer yourself, sometimes you're not the right artist. And that's all part of the process. But that's another episode of the podcast. Let's get into it. Writer's block. It sucks, right? Yeah, a lot. So what is writer's block? And okay, so obviously writer's block is when you're stunted. You just can't, you're sitting there, you've got, in my case, usually a pen and paper, and, one of my journals and a pen, and I can't make it come out of me, or you're sitting at your computer and you're just, either you just can't come up with any ideas, or you feel like every sentence you write is garbage, and that's totally normal. For me, personally, I usually, and everyone I think experiences it a little bit differently, but when I personally experience writer's block, it's more of a, like, I'm just stunted situation. I'm one of those writers that if the words aren't coming, I'm not going to force myself to write them down, because I know if I force it, it will be garbage. So I don't usually have that issue so much as I'm just sitting there staring at a blank page, trying to have it come out of my brain, and then I get nothing done. I sit there for an hour or so, and I'm like, all right, I give up. Today is not my day. And that's it. And number one, it's totally normal. 100% normal. I don't care even if you're not a writer. People experience writer's block when they're writing emails in whatever industry they work in, or to their mom or whatever. People experience writer's block all the time, but of course, as writers, it's a much bigger problem because, well, we are statistically absolutely going to encounter writer's block like so much more often. I have no idea if anyone's even ever done a study on it, but I'm sure it's something like we're like 10 times more likely to experience writer's block than anyone else, just because we are writing more often. Duh. And of course, to experience writer's block, especially if you are trying to work on a deadline and your craft is to write and you need it to happen, well, that's a problem. Because when non-writers experience writer's block, they usually don't have that same problem. They're like, I could finish the email later, it's not a big deal, whatever it might be. But for us, we need to figure it out. We really do. and that is something that it's really important, especially for writers, or even if you are, like me, I still have a day job. I don't live off of my writing yet, which is the plan ultimately. So I have podcast and, try to do all the marketing things and all that jazz. So there is that. But presently, yeah, it's still a problem for me. I just came through a bout of it, which is why I am doing this episode. So in my personal estimation, or at least the way I like to solve problems, is you can't really solve the problem until you understand the why. Why is this issue occurring? So you need to figure out why you have writer's block in the first place, right? It's scientific process. I think. Scientists, you can correct me if I'm just completely abusing that phrase. But it's something where if you identify the reason why the writer's block has occurred and know the reason is not because you're dumb or you're just not good at something. That's not the reason at all. You're not dumb, and you're definitely good at writing if you're a writer. You're just in a rut. And for me personally, like, I just recently came through my bout of writer's block because I was really stressed. I was going through a really stressful time. Not in my writing life, but life happens. And yeah, and when I am stressed, like many people, it is much more difficult to function because you have all these hormones going on in your brain and all these thoughts and everything, and it's all so overwhelming, and your body's all stressed out, and maybe you're breaking out a little bit. I know that I tend to break out when I'm stressed out, and all of those things. For me personally, this last one, stress was definitely an identifier. Another reason for writer's block that I have personally experienced is simply being too distracted and not being focused. Even if you have your outline right in front of you, I know a lot of people, I'm a little bit more of a pantser, but I still have like a milestones outline that I work from when I'm writing, where I'll know, okay, I won't write down how I'm getting from point A to point B, but I know what has to happen. I know that this character has to die, or I know that, they have to get over the mountain, or whatever it is. So I'll know what my little milestones are, like usually 3 to 5 per book, in my case, and then I always have them. So even if you have an outline, even if you know exactly where the story is going, you can still be completely unfocused. And it's not a case of stress necessarily. Sometimes that is, again, stress is definitely my number one writer's block cause, and probably a lot of other people's too. And it all relates into other things, but sometimes you're just not focused. And that can be a function of having, your phone next to you all the time in this modern age. And yeah, or just, I don't know, maybe you've got kids. I don't have kids. I have cats. But even my cats distract me. Not so much, but people in the household, your family who you love very dearly, but they're coming up to you, they want to talk, they want a snack, they need XYZ, blah, 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 blah. It's very difficult. You're constantly being interrupted. Your focus is non-existent. So that's another reason in my personal experience. And then, I had another. I did. It was really, lack of sleep. That's a big one. Lack of sleep because, and I don't know all the proper names for the things, but we all know that, long story short, your brain does not function properly if you are not getting full sleep. Your body doesn't function properly if you're not getting full sleep, but especially your brain. And your ability to think critically and problem solve is one of the first things affected by lack of sleep. So don't do that. If you're tired, don't over-caffeinate. Go take a nap. Let your brain rest, because that's really important. And then gosh darn it, I had another cause and I can't quite remember it, so we're just going to move on to solutions. But anyway, and those I'm just giving you examples, but first step to resolving writer's block is identifying why it's happening, right? Because once you identify why the writer's block is occurring, that means you're ready to go. Okay, all right, I know my problem. Cause and effect. All right, found my cause. What can I do to change the effect? What can I do to release this problem from my life? So, obviously, one of the more obvious, and I think a lot of writers probably do this, I do it a lot, I take a walk. I go outside. I get some fresh air. I just take a walk, preferably in nature, if you can. Breathe the fresh air, watch the squirrels, talk to a turtle, whatever. But just chill. Honestly, the relief and the refresh that going for a walk outside will do for you. And you get a little exercise and vitamin D. Sunshine's nice. But it's huge. It's huge. It takes you out of that environment where you're just banging your head against the wall and 20 minutes even. 20 to 30 minute walk. Go around the block, wherever you live, whatever it is, and that in itself can be enough to resolve, especially if the writer's block is that you're not focused. I find that's perfect. Sometimes I just need to recalibrate a little bit and let my brain just chill. And then all of a sudden, how you get your best ideas when you're not sitting in front of your computer or, you're in the shower or whatever. Yeah, the walk does that for me a lot of the time because I'll just sit there. I oftentimes when I go on walks to recalibrate, when I'm walking for exercise, I almost always have my headphones in, listening to a podcast or music or something. But when I'm going to actually refresh, I don't put my headphones in on purpose because I'm trying to give my brain a rest, just live in the moment. And almost every single time I do it that way, that my brain has some relief. And then all of a sudden I start getting the ideas, and that's beautiful. So, and again, I know a lot of writers probably use that, but we all talk about it because darn it, it works. So take a walk is a big one. Another one that I like to do is I'll read a book. You don't have to read an entire book. And it doesn't even have to be the same genre as what you're writing or anything like that, but preferably a book by an author that you relate to, that you love their writing style in particular, not necessarily their, maybe they're not your favorite genre, but you love the way they write. That is something like, for example, Jodi Taylor, who writes the Chronicles of St. Mary's series. I love the way she writes. I love it. She's great. And it's sci-fi. If you haven't read them, it's really, really good sci-fi. It's like time travel historians. It's fantastic. Anyway, but I'm not much of a sci-fi reader. I am definitely more of a fantasy reader. Or honestly, nonfiction. Yeah, I like to read a lot of nonfiction books. But I do historical fiction or fantasy most often. I don't pick up a sci-fi book very often at all. Less often than, honestly, I am more likely to be reading an academic publication than I am to be reading a sci-fi book, which is so closely related to fantasy, but that's it. But I love Jodi Taylor, and I love her version of sci-fi, near future. She never says the year that her books are set in, but which is very smart because you never know when people are going to be reading your books. She actually is pretty genius. Anyway, read the books. Jodi Taylor, Chronicles of St. Mary's. The first one is called One Damned Thing After Another, and I think there are like 16 or 18 books in the series now. I forget. I'm on book 11, and I love it. But anyway, read an author that you like the way they write, that the way that they phrase things inspires you. It's great. And again, just read a couple of chapters. Allow yourself to feel immersed in their story, and you will, heck, even scripts, even like, if you like the way a certain show is written, yeah, watch an episode of that show that's really well written. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I always felt was extraordinarily well written. It was funny, it was dramatic, it was everything, but in the way the characters spoke was just so original, but poignant and funny at the same time. Anyway, but yeah. So sit down, read a few chapters in a book, read a short story, or even watch an episode of something that is clever, like Buffy, Seinfeld, Frasier, Scrubs is actually really well. There are a lot of Schitt's Creek, yeah. There are a lot of very well written television shows out there that are very clever and creative, and it can and I personally find that doing that gets my creative juices flowing, because just sort of watching or listening or reading how this author or this person chose to find the avenue to the next, how they linked their story together, or just even used, I'm a big fan of using humor to just, I don't know, make making the characters more relatable, things like that. It's really important, and also using dialogue. That's another reason why well-written television shows are actually really great, because like dialogue writing is really important. Maybe the answer to your writer's block is that your characters need to have a conversation, which frankly readers love. I need to remind myself of that a lot of the time as a writer, is that you get wrapped up as a writer in all these things, but frankly, as a reader, I really like dialogue. I really love reading dialogue, because it's you can hear the conversation in your head, and you get to know the characters better. And honestly, sometimes just having the characters have a conversation is the answer. And then the characters could talk you out of the writer's block, because as we all know, they just sort of bring on a life of their own, and we didn't even know what they were going to do next ourselves, even though we are their creators. Super fun. Super fun, a little weird, very abstract. The human brain is a very, very fascinating organ. But yes, so read or watch something not something that's going to take you forever, but like don't sit down and watch like the entire television series from start to finish. Ooh, Law and Order is another one that's, any of the Law and Orders, very well written, actually, in general. Anyway, that's just giving you some of my personal favorites. But yes, doing that, and that has helped me just like, light bulb will go on, and I'll realize, all right, I need some dialogue, or I need a joke, or I don't have to stay in this scene. I can end the chapter right here and move on to the next step. And that's something else that other books and things like that will really help me with, which actually brings me to my next thing is the part you're stuck on necessary? Do you have to write it? Seriously. Do you have to? Have you simply gotten a little entrenched in the story, and you're writing and describing maybe this one place or person, but is it actually important to the plot? A lot of the time, at least when I get stuck, I realize, oh hey, I actually don't need that. I need the reader to know that the character made it to this place, and I can talk about what the place looks like, but then I can absolutely end the chapter, because I don't need to talk about them setting up camp and making a fire and eating some trail rations for dinner. I just don't need to talk about that. It's enough to just say, and they spent the night in the cave. If there is nothing that happens that night, if it's a really a night of no incident, and all they're gonna do is be in that, I don't know why I'm thinking of a cave scenario right now, but yeah, I'm a fantasy author, so people travel, whatever. But yeah, if there's no point to it in the plot, then just end that part. Be done. Be like, all right, they got there, they bedded down for the night, had some food. You can boil it down to a few sentences, because if the next thing that's actually important to happens the next morning, then, or even the next day, you can fiat that. Just, that's allowed. It is allowed. And I definitely do that to myself a lot of the time. And sometimes I just have to stop and take a beat and say, wait a minute. Does anyone care that there was porridge? No. And do I even need to talk about these 3 days? No, I don't. I can say that they rode for 3 days on the trail. The weather was fine. I can sum up those 3 days in a paragraph if I'm not having anything happen. They can just travel from one place to another and then get to the place. That's fine. Readers are more than fine with that because, as a reader, there's nothing worse than just reading a whole chapter that's boring. And you're going, why is this in here? It's probably because the author just got entrenched and they were just like, well, I'm just following the characters along. I'm along for this ride. Well, you can be along for the ride and you can let us know that they got from here to there, but we don't need a blow by blow on stuff that is not of consequence to the storyline. Now, if they get attacked on their way from one place to another, or something that happens that furthers character development or plots or whatever, yeah, write that part. But you can also, again, if the parts around it are not of consequence, you can glaze over it. And your readers will probably be grateful. So remember, give yourself that moment of just going, okay, if I were reading this book, would I care? Probably not. Moving on. End the chapter, jump to another, what's happening 500 miles away. I don't know, whatever sort of, I often in my books, I have, different, it's all the same plot, but like different characters are in different places working together or against each other in different ways. So I oftentimes will end one chapter and then I jump to another place entirely where there's another character that's related, but they're having their own circumstance that's going on that's not related to whatever is giving me writer's block. So I can totally write that chapter instead. And that's really nice. So remember, you're allowed. You're the writer. You created this. It's your world. Literally. It's your world. Make them do whatever you want. Especially if you're a fiction writer. It's really your world. Whatever you want. Another is, honestly, do something creative that is not writing. Like, put away the writing tools. Whether you do that on a computer or you do that elsewhere. And just, I don't know, I personally love to draw. I enjoy painting sometimes. I love to cook, actually, but there's so many different, singing if you enjoy singing, but do something that is creative, that is not writing. There's so many ways to be creative. It could be doing a puzzle. That's honestly, it's a little more cerebral than some other creative tasks, but it's still a creative task. You're still problem solving. You're still having to fit pieces together and make like the basket of kittens or whatever the puzzle picture ends up being. And honestly, that, again, it's similar to the walk. It will recalibrate your brain so that you take yourself out of that hard place where you are just banging your head to going, okay, refresh. I'm not gonna force myself to do XYZ. I'm just gonna sit here. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do something enjoyable. I'm going to cook a fabulous meal and bake a cake. I don't care. Whatever it is, but build a piece of furniture, whatever your jam is outside of writing. Play cards. Do something that is not work, that is enjoyable, that is creative in some context, something where your brain gets to function and gets to turn. Or, well, you know, and I'm a dancer. I also like to create choreography, that kind of thing. So I'll get up, I'll do some pole choreography. I'll start creating some pole choreography or even just free dancing. That's really nice. I do enjoy cooking too. I like to draw. I like to do a lot of creative things. But it's very helpful to just still have the creative juices flowing, but then it's relaxed. And then, similar to the walk, with that brain recalibrating while you're making your spaghetti or whatever I made spaghetti today, so this is what's in my head. You're making your spaghetti. You suddenly go, oh my gosh, the answer, boom, light bulb. And it's great. And you have lunch. So I would definitely say that. And then, honestly, last but not least, give yourself a break. Writer's block happens. And if you are trying to force it, then once again, we are going to be back at a place called Garbage Words, where you don't you don't like anything that you're writing because you're forcing yourself to get it out. And honestly, even if you are writing on a deadline, that's okay, because you can give yourself a little break. You can give yourself an hour. I promise you. Even if you're on that deadline, because if you keep trying to force it out of your brain and you sit there for 8 hours just in mental agony over this thing that you just can't make work, it's not going to be good. But if you take an hour off to do anything, honestly, any break, like I mentioned earlier, take a nap, you can watch some TV, do whatever. Heck, I don't know, whatever you like, even if you just want to work on a spreadsheet for your job or whatever it is that like chills you out, do that. Do it for an hour. Come back, and you know what? The rest of those hours of the day, you're going to be working better, you're going to be working faster and more productively, which means that 1 hour wasn't wasted at all. You'll make up the time, I promise. Because writer's block only gets worse the more you sit and you stare and you just, you can't, don't do that to yourself. It hurts. Stop it. It never helps. Never helps. So yeah, give yourself a break. You're allowed. And again, even if you are a writer who has deadlines and things like that, well, obviously don't. I know procrastination is like a hobby for pretty much all writers. I don't know a single one that I have met or talked to that does not do that regularly. And like, we're procrastination pros over here with the writing. But obviously, even if you are working against, like, even if you have 24 hours to get something out, okay. But still, if you're hitting a wall, there is nothing you can do in front of that computer in that moment that is going to make it work. Even if you take a 10-minute break, you're going to feel better. Have a cup of tea. Have a glass of water. Just get up. Walk around the house. Play with the dog. Pet the cat. Whatever it is. Sing to the bird. I don't know. Have fun. Just take a break. That's really it. And the type of break you think you need, do that. Once you identify the reason why, again, usually in my case, lots of stress. But I identify, okay, I'm too stressed out to think clearly and to think creatively. Therefore, I need to do some yoga and meditate or whatever. That's something else I like to do. I enjoy doing yoga and meditation and the breathing, and it's very soothing and clarifying for me. Those breathing exercises are medically proven, by the way. They really do refresh your brain and are good for your body. But yeah, take a break. Give yourself the break that you need. That is really the key. That is my unsolicited advice on dealing with writer's block. I hope it helps. Because, yeah, writer's block sucks. And honestly, the way I dealt with it when I've been stressed out for the past month, I did give myself a break. And I'm on my own deadline. I do have my own deadlines that I'm writing toward. And I'm still on track with my deadline. Right now. I am. And I actually got some good writing done today. Which is great. That's great. But I honestly hadn't really written. I'd done a few words here and there for almost a month. Honestly. It was tough. The holidays, I mean, like, yeah, well, yeah, just a lot. And I was traveling for the holidays, like many people do, blah, 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 blah. You don't need to know the whole reasons. But I knew exactly why the words weren't coming. I knew why the story wasn't coming out of me. So I said, all right, I just can't, like, I honestly can't right now. I just can't. So yeah, I did a lot of reading. That helped a lot. And when I sat down to write today, after reading other people's books, a couple of them actually on medical topics. Again, not fiction books at all. One of them is a wonderful book on mobility. Mobility for pole dancers in particular, which I love. I've learned a lot, and my shoulders already feel better. Thank you, Colleen Jolly. So that in itself, but even the way that this book about mobility is written, which is completely academic and very different from a fantasy novel, that has helped me because there's still a story. The book is, no matter what type of book you're reading, remember there's an A to B situation, and you can learn from any author, from any genre. And heck, maybe you even just like the way they phrase things. That's fun too. So yes, identify your problem, identify the source of your mental blockage for writer's block, and then say, okay, I know why. I'm going to fix that. And then you fix it. And remember that your brain really does need to recalibrate. So yeah. And of course, understand that having a setback is 100% normal. Absolutely normal. Everyone has them all the time, no matter who they are. Super professional, Mary Higgins Clark, Tom Clancy, Stephen King, these Ken Follett, they get writer's block too. I guarantee you. They just have their own way of dealing with it. They've, become professionals. They know how to do it, and they get through. And that's just it. You need to figure out what works for you, and it's not going to ruin everything. Give yourself a break. You're a human, not a robot, not a writing machine. You're a human being with thoughts and feelings and chemicals in your brain that need to be calmed down and balanced in order to get the right results in your story, whatever it may be. So yeah, just because you hit a speed bump, it doesn't mean your book is ruined. Just means you need to chill. That can be hard, but still, I often find that's pretty much the answer. So thank you so much for joining me once again. I hope that you will really get over your writer's block better with this advice. And don't forget, the Writer's Workshop is on February 18th. And it'll be from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe February 18th is a Saturday. It's a Saturday or a Sunday. I put it on a weekend. I have to look at the calendar to tell you which one it is. But it's from 2 to 4 EST, Eastern Time Zone, so New York time. For those of you who are international, I'm in the New York time zone, and I would really love to share that with you. Go to my website, HollisJoMcCullumAuthor.com, And check out my Instagram, which is at Hollis Jo McCullum, for lots of insights and things like that. And of course, Queen Witch is coming. Ooh. That's pretty much, that's it, right? Yeah.